Okay, so we have Andersen Pickard here, my good friend, kind of my boss. Thank you for coming out and doing this, Andersen. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Happy to be on the show. Really excited to talk, baseball, whatever this show brings today.
Absolutely. So, baseball is back. That's the most exciting thing. Those are the most exciting words I've heard since March. So, give me your initial reaction. How you feeling? How's life now that we hypothetically have baseball on July 1st?
Yeah, it hasn't really set in yet for me almost. I was recording my own podcast a couple days ago.
Yeah.
And at the start, I just shouted, baseball is back. And at the end, I shouted, baseball is back. Because it hasn't set in yet. And I don't think it'll set in until June 23rd when that first game happens.
Yeah.
But that announcement, just in general, I forget what night it was when it first started to seem like baseball was nearing its return. But that first night when it seemed like things were finally starting to come back, and then of course when the official announcement was made, that was pretty awesome. It's been up here in New Hampshire. It's been almost 8 months since we've had real baseball, just games, rec games, stuff like that. And then Major League Baseball, obviously, we haven't had any of that since the postseason, with the exception of spring training. So it's huge to get that back. I'm really pumped.
You're supposed to be an umpire this summer too, right?
Yeah.
You excited for that?
I am, and I had my first training session last night, and we were supposed to umpire a game. There were a couple of us there, and we were supposed to switch off happening, and it poured. So the game was supposed to start at 5:30.
Yeah.
And 5:25 it was sunny out. 5:28 it started pouring.
Oh my!
They called the game at 5:29, and it was sunny again at 5:35. So it poured for about 3 minutes. The fields were basically flooded. You couldn't. I walked across the parking lot, and it was above my ankles.
Oh my gosh!
And it was just 4 or 5 minutes of rain, and we've been in a drought for about 2 weeks, so it was just perfect timing, of course, right?
Right.
8 months without baseball, and then we finally get it back, and there it goes.
Well, I'm glad you guys got rain, that you're not in a drought anymore.
Right.
But yeah, that is how Mother Nature and baseball seem to work. I remember when I'd play baseball at a young age, and it just always seemed that the games I was most excited about, it would rain all day, and I used to drive my parents crazy. I'd be like, if it's windy enough and it stops raining now, it'll pour. So yeah, I feel you on that. I've actually not heard your opinions on the negotiations, the madness that happened in the last couple months. Everybody seems to have very strong opinions about these, and you can be as unfiltered as you'd like here. So go ahead and be as mad as you want, scream baseball is back, whatever you want to do. But let us know, how did you feel about all of the negotiations, and now kind of looking back, now that we have a resolution, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm excited it's back, obviously, but, when those negotiations were going on, the biggest thing is I was really just frustrated that nothing was happening. But obviously, that's not my spot to, chime in. I chimed in a bit on social media, but, obviously it was up to the owners and the league and the Players Association for them to sort things out. And that was the biggest thing I kept in mind when people were saying, fire Rob Manfred, these owners don't care about baseball. I'm like, all right, let's take it down a notch for a second, just because, these are negotiations. Both sides are in the wrong, both sides are in the right from time to time. So just take it down a notch. Ultimately, I agreed with the players. I thought just Major League Baseball's leverage kind of caused the negotiations to last longer than they probably should have. But ultimately, we have a deal, so that's what matters to me as the follower of the game and the fan. I'm not a player or an owner who's going to make money or lose money depending on the season, which selfishly, I know that sounds super selfish, but I'm happy that baseball's back.
And I think that was kind of the overarching idea, right? Was fans just want baseball, players want to play, but obviously they have a vested interest financially. They have to take care of their families, they have to take care of themselves, and then the owners as well. They may have a lot more money than most of us do and than the players do, but this is still an investment to them, so they wanted to make sure that they could make as much money as they can. And what I kept ranting about on my podcast was, I think everybody needed to just understand the entire time that nobody was going to get everything that they wanted from the start. And I think both sides, and even some of the fans, everybody involved, wanted to get the most that they could, what they would normally expect. And that's just not realistic with everything going on right now, especially when, in my opinion, safety should have been the first concern over money.
Right, and I think the the negotiations lasted longer than they should have. I think ultimately that idea that no, we have to get what we want, or else we're not going to play. No, this isn't a normal year. It's not going to be a normal season. You're not going to get what you want in every aspect of it. Ultimately it was either that or no baseball. So I'm glad it all came together. And then you talked about the safety of it, and just the timing is really wild with so many teams announcing positive tests in recent days. And I think, what was it, yesterday was like a record day for positive tests in the United States. And just the timing is, again, safety is the top priority. And as much as I want baseball back, if it's going to risk the player's safety, I don't want that. So I can just hope that they have the right protocols in place to keep everyone safe and have a successful baseball season that lasts, throughout the regular season and the playoffs.
Yeah. And I don't know if this is true. I think I saw this yesterday. You can correct me on this if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure Major League Baseball is going to allow individual teams to figure out if they have fans in the stands. Was that baseball or football? Am I off here?
I'm not quite sure. I think I saw something along those lines. I don't know. I'll take your word for it. I am in the same boat as you, where I didn't look into that in depth. But I would imagine if the state allows there to be fans and a larger staff at the stadium, I don't see why that couldn't happen.
Yeah, that was, to me, the interesting idea behind it is you could have one team making a lot more money than another team. Because if you think about it, let's say the Yankees, it's not going to happen because of all the cases in New York, but let's say the Yankees were able to have 50% fans and the Oakland A's couldn't have any fans. There's already a financial difference there. Now we're going to have an even worse financial difference. I know in Chicago, in Illinois, because we're going into Phase 4 tomorrow of our reopening phase, you can have, I think it's 20% capacity in the stadium. So the Cubs and the White Sox could have some fans if Major League Baseball allows them, but then you're going to get into a lot of mess of the A's are upset that they can't make as much money as as big market teams just because of the state they're in. So I don't know how all of that would work, but I think that could get messy as well.
Yeah, just thinking of it from a level-headed and fair perspective, that definitely isn't equal on all sides. Will they split the revenue? Will they share it among the other teams that don't have fans? I don't really know how that'll work. Will Major League Baseball grant exceptions on future salaries? Will they give them a draft pick, something like that? It's definitely a good point. I was thinking about the same thing with hockey and basketball, with just reopening and training and stuff. And if they can't, there's some states that just won't allow it.
Right.
And the same thing goes with baseball. How Canada and New York are possible places that might or might not be playable. Same with Florida. Just there's that whole competitive advantage, and like you said, the financial advantage. And it worries me that might not have been sorted out yet. I don't think I get the sense that hasn't been agreed on in the negotiations that took place. So that's definitely worrisome. Hopefully they get that sorted out before things start up again.
Right, because I think Major League Baseball, they thought about Canada, because the day after they all agreed, they submitted a plan to Toronto and Canada to say, pretty please, can we have the Blue Jays play? Can people come in here? But I think they kind of just assumed that the rest of the United States would just kind of fold and mold to what Major League Baseball wanted them to do. And I think that would work with the NFL. I think the NFL has the power to do that. But I don't think Major League Baseball has that kind of power across the United States right now.
Right, I agree there. And I just think, the only thing that would come to mind if that doesn't work is relocating teams. But then, again, you have that competitive advantage that if they're in a college stadium or, a minor league baseball stadium or, just a spring training facility, although it sounds like Arizona and Florida won't be hosting more teams than they can. But just that advantage of obviously having a different stadium. It's like you're playing road games for 60 games instead of just 30 games out of the season. So ultimately, like I've been saying, baseball is better than no baseball. But I guess we'll just see where that ends up.
So what do you think? I've enjoyed asking this question. You put a poll out. Do you think this season will be legitimate? And dive into that a little bit. Why or why not? Because I've had a lot of split opinions. We've seen a lot of split opinions on Twitter. Some people are very passionate about this, that it's not a legitimate season. So if you could kind of break that down for me on what you think.
Yeah, so I've been pretty vocal that I am very strongly on the side of it being very legitimate. Obviously, it's hard with stats. If someone, I don't know, has an ERA, they're going to be starters will be playing in 15 games roughly, maybe a little more, maybe a little less. So if a starter goes 15 games and has a really good 15-game stretch, like several starters do, they're in the running for the best ERA in MLB history,
right,
or the best record percentage in MLB history. So those I really want to say they're legitimate, but they just won't be. But winning the division or winning the World Series, those should 100% be legitimate. Every team has a fair balance, other than potentially relocating stadiums, but there should be no asterisk around division titles, World Series championship. And then just for stats in general, like if you look back and if it's 2025 and you're looking back and saying, oh, this player had awful hits this year, but they had a decent batting average, you have to keep in mind, the idea of having an asterisk is basically saying keep in mind that this happened, but I feel like there's a bit of a difference there, because you have to keep in mind, but it shouldn't discredit the player for the achievements that they posted. For example, if Mike Trout has he's going to have roughly a third of the hits that he would have in a normal season. He shouldn't be discredited for that. It's not a bad season, so it needs to be kept in the back of your head. But it's a legitimate season as much as it could be under these circumstances, in my opinion.
So just to play devil's advocate here, if you look at last season, I know I've talked to Devin Fink and Jeremy Frankel about this a lot, because they're very big on, like, you look at the percentages of how much 60 games is able to predict what will happen in 162. And I want to say Devin told me today that it was like 70% accuracy or something like that for the 60 games compared to 162. It's much more accurate than 40, and it's almost as accurate as 80 games. So my question to you would be, with all of that in mind, we look at last season, two very prominent teams, the A's and the Nationals, would not have been in the playoffs through 60 games last season. So with that in mind, do you think there will be good teams that would have made the playoffs over 162, but just don't get going fast enough?
To answer your question in a straightforward manner, yes, there will be teams where that exception is made, but how many teams will there be? I don't think it'll be half of the crop. I think there'll be a team or two where one or two playoff teams won't make the playoffs and one or two non-playoff teams will make the playoffs. But like I said, it's basically a fair balance. You're in fair territory here. So the level is set for everyone to compete like they would in a normal season. And there's not too many rule changes either, other than the wacky player on second base rule and the universal DH. It's not like there's these crazy rule changes that suddenly benefit one team or hurt another. Everyone, like I've been saying, everyone's on the same. They've got the same bar for playing, and so everything's equal now, and it's time to prove who's the best team in baseball. And I don't think that should be discredited.
That's fair. Do you think the universal DH will stay after this season?
I don't think so. It's interesting how that it sounded like the players let the league implement their season instead of coming to an agreement because they didn't want further action taken in 2021. And I'm not sure if the universal DH was part of that. Like, I don't know if the player said, well, okay, we'll give it up this season, but we want NL having pitchers and the American League having designated hitters next year. Personally, I love the idea of the universal DH. Again, like I've been saying, everyone's on the same level. They've got that same level of competitiveness. So I think it's great, but I don't know if it'll stick. A lot of traditionalists like it, how baseball's always been.
I mean, I do enjoy the cat and mouse game that managers can have in terms of the National League and double switches, things like that. But realistically, I mean, pitchers hit I want to say 128 last year or something like that. They were just atrocious. And I would have to imagine that if you look at those hits that added up to the 128, I mean, there's a lot of luck in baseball, and we all know that. And I think there's a lot of luck in those hits that went in there. So, I mean, in terms of just making the game better and more exciting, you're going to make the game more exciting by putting in a DH. Although I do think that this year, it may not be enough of a disadvantage to be provable, but I think there might be a slight disadvantage to NL teams who weren't planning to have a designated hitter. Because a lot of times you have a DH type to be your designated hitter in the American League. I mean, I think a Joey Gallo type should be a designated hitter. I think there might be a slight disadvantage. It probably won't be provable, but having I mean, having a Joey Gallo type, I know he plays the field, but having a Joey Gallo type, something like that, is an advantage right now. Again, I don't think it'll be provable, but I would enjoy seeing it pass this year. I'm going to stop rambling about the universal DH because by now, hopefully, they've heard something. So, let's see. The other thing I wanted to touch on is the expanded playoff format. And again, a lot of split opinion there. We ended up not getting an expanded playoff format. Did you think we should have?
Again, I think it comes down to I don't know. I feel like it probably comes down to what the players wanted. I think it would have been, if there's a year to experiment with something, this is the year. So if they wanted to experiment with that going forward, I think it would have been a great time to do it. But at the same time, they want to squeeze, games in, and I think I would prefer longer series with a smaller amount of teams than shorter series with a larger amount of teams. So ultimately, I like the idea. I don't know if I don't know if it's the right idea, but I like it. If that makes any sense.
Well, I liked it because in a season where we're not going to get as much baseball as we're used to, it would have given us more baseball. And I think that's what excited a lot of people about it, is in a season where we're only going to get 60 games of Mike Trout instead of 162, we might get a couple more games because the Angels are much more likely to make the playoffs in a 16-team format than a 10-team format. So I think that was what is the most exciting. But, I mean, realistically, if you think about it, the MLB had that really big deal that they just made with Turner for the playoffs. I mean, they had the money to do it. It probably would have made them more money. So, I mean, looking at it from that perspective, it probably was the players. I don't know. I don't know why the players would say no to that, but I don't know why the owners would have really said no to it either, because that would make all of their teams more money.
It confused me because it seemed like you were saying, like it would benefit both sides.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't think we'll ever know. I don't think we'll ever know what the true, reasoning was behind that. I'm good with it. Like, it's not a big point for me where I'm like, oh, that was so disappointing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm sure there'll be a lot of fans who are in that boat where they'll say, well, my team finished, 14th. Why they should have gotten the playoffs? That would have. This is the perfect year for that to happen.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I mean, I'm good with it, but peculiar decision.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, with all of that in mind, kind of touching on a lot of the controversial topics there, other than the actual idea of baseball being back, give me some specific things that you're excited to see in our 60-game season.
I mean, just to be broad for a second before I get more in depth, just the idea of the 60-game season itself, in where teams, like you said last year, or like you said just now, last year the Nationals wouldn't have made the playoffs with that record they had through 60 games, and like you've been touching on with with Devin and Jeremy joining your show, just those 60-game stretches and compared to 162 game stretches. I don't want to say it adds luck because I feel like that discredits the players.
Yeah.
But there's more uncertainty with how is my team going to perform in 60 games. If there's, like I was just thinking about this morning, the Indians had a near 20-game win streak a few years ago. I think it was 20 games if I remember correctly, 2021, something like that.
Yeah.
That would, if they do that and then they go 500 the rest of the year, that puts them at 40-20, which is that's going to get you in the playoffs. So it's just, you got to ride those hot streaks and find your way into the playoffs every way you can. Baseball players do a good job at fighting for every win they can get, and I think that's going to be super important this year.
Definitely, and it was interesting. I don't know if you saw the article that Devin put out today, how basically the 60-game season allows for somebody like Mike Trout to literally carry a team on their back. Because if a lot of people are thinking we're going to have like division wildcard races that there are a lot of teams within 1 or 2 games, then you have Mike Trout put up 4 or 5 WAR in 60 games, which is unlikely, but it's possible. I mean, Cody Bellinger, I think, put up 4.2 or something like that in a 66-day stretch last year. Again, I'm giving all of the credit to Devin here because I didn't know these stats off the top of my head. But yeah, I mean, there are guys like that who can put up a ridiculous amount of wins above replacement in a short amount of time that can legitimately carry a team and be the difference by themselves almost.
Right. Yeah, I didn't see Devin's piece, but I know that he's been pushing that idea on Twitter. And I was asked last night, someone asked me on Twitter, who do you think will be the NL MVP?
Yeah.
And I said, well, right now I'll say probably Mookie Betts. that would be my top pick right now. But it could be anyone. I mean, it could be someone we don't really recognize right now. It's not going to be a bench player or anything like that.
Yeah.
But at this point, like I said, it just takes one hot streak for you to pull your team, push them into the playoffs, and once they're in the playoffs, have that good stretch of games, and then you're World Series champion. So whoever leads the World Series winning team is probably going to be MVP this year.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think this season, more than any other, is a season where we could see a pitcher win MVP again. Because in a limited opportunity, their numbers will look more impressive to the eye than a batter's numbers will. Because you're going to look at a hitter hitting, maybe they hit 330 with 15 homers and 50 RBIs, which is ridiculously impressive for that time period, but we're used to the normal MVP hitter stats, and then if you have a pitcher go 10-2 with a 2.1 ERA, they're going to look way more impressive than they normally would. So that kind of excites me as a former pitcher. Just maybe the idea of first pitcher since Justin Verlander to win an MVP. I think that could be fun.
Yeah, I definitely agree that would be neat. And if there's a season for it to happen, it's definitely this year. And I like what you said there, how those pitcher stats look so inflated. They're going to look so inflated against the hitter stats this year, just because the way we look at stats and the range that the stats can vary. How much the hitter stats can range from, what stats make a hitter good, what stats make a hitter bad, and how those vary from what stats make a pitcher good and what stats make a pitcher bad. So, like you said, if there's a year for it to happen, it's this year. I wouldn't necessarily, if I were to place a bet right now, I probably wouldn't pick a pitcher, but at the same time, I would not be shocked at all if a pitcher takes the prize, and a pitcher who no one expected either.
Yeah. So, kind of along those lines, another theory I was seeing. We've seen a lot more openers in the last couple of years. The A's doing it, the Rays doing it. As an A's fan, don't really love it, but when we didn't have a fifth starter, kind of had to do it, right? So something I've been seeing with and kind of toying with in my own mind is the idea of at the beginning of the season doing kind of a 2-starter-a-day system. So you do a starter does 3 innings, another starter does 3, and then you go to the bullpen because they can pitch more often then. And at the beginning of the year when likely with this spring training, I don't know what kind of shape these pitchers are in, but it's highly doubtful they're in a 7-inning right-away mode in terms of being in baseball shape. Because, you and I know from playing baseball, even at a much lower level, it is hard to get back into baseball shape that quickly. That's just not the way our bodies function. So what do you think of the idea of kind of using 2 starters a game, or just the idea of a lot more non-traditional pitching methods in terms of the way that progression will go throughout a game?
Yeah, teams are definitely going to get unique for sure. And I was, when you were starting to get into that, I was like preparing to bring up the injury point, and you're definitely right that I don't think we're going to see pitchers go 6 or 7 innings consistently this year, whether they want to or not. Their coaches are going to pull them because that health aspect is so important, especially, like I said, when teams can get on these hot streaks and really take the league by storm. So teams are going to get unique pitching, hitting, fielding all over, and I think it would be cool to see something like that with 2 starters, not even like an opener, but really just 2 starters, where basically every team decides, all right, we're going to, this is what we're going to do for starting pitching. We're going to have starting pitcher number 1, starting pitcher number 2. And I think it'd be cool to see what that strategy looks like. Like, how do you pick which player goes the first 3 innings, and how do you pick which one goes the next? Because there's going to be strategy behind that too. It's not just going to be, well, here's our pitching rotation. This is our number 1 pitcher. This is our number 2.
Right.
They're gonna break down data. They're going to see, what pitchers are like through 3 innings, if they're better in the early half of the game or if they're better in the late half. And again, it's going to be their first 3 innings of the game that they pitch, whether it's the 4th through 6th or the 1st through 3rd. But just that, that mentality of it's the first 3 innings of the game, it's kind of more mellow, and then it's the middle of the game. This is where things are really starting to heat up. So I'm excited for the strategy of that.
I also think on the flip side, some managers might be very worried about injury, but when I'm looking at those kind of mid-tier teams, right, we're looking at maybe the Indians, White Sox. That just pops to my head because I've been doing AL Central stuff today. But we look at kind of teams like that we're not expecting to be fantastic this season, but still could be very decent, especially through a 60-game stretch. I think those teams might be a little more aggressive with their pitching decisions. But if you look at a team like the Dodgers, who is kind of always worried about the long term, they're not always worried about short term. They kind of take both into effect. I think somebody like the Dodgers would be more likely to pull Clayton Kershaw. But if you look at the Twins, wow, it's been a long day. I thought about Michael Kopech, and I said Twins. Okay.
No, that's all right. All good. I don't blame you.
The White Sox and
today.
Michael Kopech, they might be more likely to let him go because they want to win. They want to get to the playoffs. So I think that'll be very interesting, just like we've been talking about, the different strategies depending on what the teams are focused on, because some teams might see this as their opportunity to get to the playoffs and go win a World Series.
Right, and I think it'll vary by team. Almost, again, safety is important, but if you have a pitcher who can throw hard for 9 innings and you don't think they're going to throw out their arm completely and lose the season, then we could see them go 9 innings. And I know that completely varies from what I just said, how everyone should go only 3 innings. But if there's that pitcher who can really just do the work, put it and get, it's so important for a team to have that pitcher who goes the long haul so they can keep that bullpen fresh. If you don't have to visit the bullpen once in a game, that's going to be huge, especially this season.
Yeah, and if you can have a starter who's going to go 15 appearances and hit 120 innings this season in 60 games, I mean, that will be ridiculously valuable, not just to the other starters, but to the other relievers, like you said, because just you can see the impact just visually. When you have a guy throw a complete game and the next day, that bullpen is dynamic, because then they've had at least an extra day of rest. Maybe there's a travel day before. They've got 2 or 3 days in there. So yeah, I think that'll be very big.
Yeah, and it's going to help too if teams, have that one player who's going to go 9 innings, but then the next day have a player who's only going to go 3, or a pitcher who's only going to go 3. So then the bullpen's ready to take on 3 or 4 innings if they need to, because like I said, they're well rested. That gives them 4 guys who can each throw an inning. And like you said, that's basically a guaranteed 2 wins. If you can win that first one with a pitcher going 9 innings, then even if your starter gets chased out of the game after 2 innings, and your next starter, if you have a second starter, gets chased out after 2, that's still 5 to 6 innings of quality baseball from your relievers who are well rested and healthy and ready to go because they had that benefit of the extra day off, basically.
Absolutely. It'll be very interesting to see all of the strategy. That's what I'm most excited about, especially as a pitcher. Like I said, just seeing all the pitching strategy. That's the most fun part about baseball to me. So I'm very excited to see that. I believe that's all the time we have for now, Andersen. So thank you for coming out on late notice to do this, talk about baseball. It has been a lot of fun, my guy.
Yeah, thank you very much. Always a pleasure. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Talk to you later. Take care. Well, that was Andersen. I'm going to be by myself for a little bit because Coach Bruce let me down here. We have a special guest in a moment. We're going to be doing some fun stuff here for the rest of the episode. So I am going to try to get my next guest on here. While I do that, my next guest is here. Just kidding. I was going to rant about the NBA, but my next guest is here. So let's throw that in here. What's up? I cannot hear you. You are muted.
Hi!
Hi! How's it going?
It's going great.
So, chat, YouTube. This is Paige. Paige, chat, YouTube.
YouTube know me.
Okay, yes, YouTube does know you. Twitch chat knows your voice. They do not know you personally. Yeah, they know your voice. Well, not from sports, but from games. They know your voice. So
I know, I'm a pretty fun gamer. Oh wait, I gotta embody Coach Bruce. Are you ready?
Oh, I'm ready. Nice. You look exactly like Coach Bruce. Oh my gosh. I'm definitely gonna have to clip this and send that to him because he's gonna love that. So yes, what do you want to start with? You want to start ranting about baseball?
I want to rant about football.
Okay, so for football, you said you wanted to predict the divisions because you're so smart. Do you have the divisions up in front of you? Perfect. So let's start with... I was just doing baseball, so I have to switch my mind. Let's start with the NFC West. Give me your 1 through 5.
I don't really know what's been happening in the offseason.
Okay, that makes it more fun. I'll tell you if you're ridiculously wrong.
Well, I'm looking at their record from last year, too.
Okay.
So, you do have that pulled up because
Well, naturally.
I also didn't realize that the Bears were 500 last year. Like,
Yeah, they were just
they were
purely
really
average.
bad.
No,
Okay.
they were just average.
So, NFC West.
Yes.
I think the Seahawks are going to get first.
Okay.
I think they're going to come out, and even though the 49ers were pretty good last year, I think they can switch spots.
Okay.
And the Seahawks can have the 13 wins instead of the 49ers.
So
if they get to play that many games.
Right. Right.
And then I think the 49ers will stay. And I think the Cardinals will maybe get ahead of the Rams and get third.
Okay.
Because their quarterback's had a year in the league now. And he's kind of learning and figuring out what the NFL is all about.
Do you know who their quarterback is?
Kyler Murray, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good job.
So he's had his year.
Yes.
Maybe he grew a little bit in the offseason. We don't know. Or he maybe found out how to jump a little bit higher.
Are you calling him short?
Isn't he like 5'10"?
He's 5'9".
He's a little short.
He is short. By the way, I'm
He's
pulling
shorter
up.
than my dad. My dad's not that.
I'm pulling up my predictions to see how they match up to yours, because I wrote that really long article, which I'm now plugging for Twitch chat and YouTube. You can go find it on Primetime Sports Talk. It'll be in the description of YouTube. Okay, now that we've done that, go ahead. Keep continuing in your reasoning.
For which part?
NFC West.
Oh, I think the Rams are just going to fall off and just be kind of crappy this year.
Okay.
I don't really have a reason for that.
That's fair. I agree.
And the 49ers will be about average.
Okay.
A little bit better, I guess, because they're in second, right?
Yes.
So it'll probably be like 13, like 10 wins, 8 maybe for the
Okay.
Cardinals, and then the Rams are just going to be completely crap and get like maybe 5
Okay.
at the most.
That's kind of... it's a little bit off from what I had. I had Cardinals at 12-4. I have Seahawks at 11-5. And I have 49ers at 10-6. So our 49ers and Seahawks were accurate. What you probably didn't know about the Cardinals is they traded for the best wide receiver in football, DeAndre Hopkins.
But he also has to learn how to work with Kyler Murray, and Kyler being a newer quarterback might not know how to work with him as well.
I mean, yes, but he also worked with Deshaun Watson when Deshaun Watson came into the league, and he was perfectly fine then.
But they were both new, right?
No. He was there before Deshaun Watson was. But that's okay. That's okay. That was pretty accurate. I also have the Rams at 6-10. So, that was pretty good. Okay,
we just kicked the Rams to the curb, like, bye-bye.
I mean, they lost, like, 3 of their starters on defense. They lost their running back. People are really high on their rookie running backs, but I don't think they'll be very good. Anyway, let's go NFC East.
How are the Redskins in the East?
Washington, D.C.
Oh, Seattle Seahawks. Oh.
This is why we can't have nice things, chat.
I always forget that Washington is Washington, D.C., like for the Wizards and all that.
Yep, it is.
Okay. So, NFC East. They had 2 average teams last year and 2 bad teams last year.
That is correct.
I think for Tim's sake, the Cowboys are going to be okay.
Okay.
They might get 10 wins. They might get the double digits.
Okay.
Not 100% it, but like,
Okay.
who knows? Yeah.
I had the Cowboys at 10-6.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool. I didn't read your article.
I know.
Oops.
It would have been smart for you to have it pulled up, but
I thought about it, and then I watched a YouTube video instead.
That's fair. Okay, so Cowboys at 10-6.
10-6 because I think they could surprise us.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I don't know. Maybe the Eagles will take second.
Okay.
I still don't think the Giants or the Redskins will be very impressive.
No.
The Redskins, maybe, because they did go 3-13. Maybe they picked somebody up in the offseason.
No. They actually lost their best player.
That's unfortunate.
They lost their left tackle, who's probably the best left tackle in football. He was traded to the 49ers.
That's unfortunate for them.
Very, yes.
So, I still don't think the Giants will do much because you never really hear about them anyway.
No.
So, yeah, I think the Cowboys will definitely do better. I don't know how the Eagles are going to do. Who's their new quarterback?
They don't have a new quarterback. It's Carson Wentz.
Where's Nick from? Nick Foles. Wasn't he from the Eagles?
A long time ago, like 3 years ago.
Hey,
And he was the backup.
I don't know. I just remember seeing him play against the Bears once.
Cool.
A long time ago.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my East.
Okay. So I had Eagles at 13-3, Cowboys at 10-6, Redskins at 3-13, and Giants at 1-15.
Yeah, I don't think the Giants or the Redskins, they're not going to be that impressive.
No, they didn't really add anybody. The Eagles, I think they're going to be very good. They got a top corner. They got the Lions' best cornerback, Darius Slay. So if Carson Wentz can stay healthy, they also drafted a very good receiver. So now Carson Wentz actually has a receiver because his top receiver last year was his tight end, and he didn't have a receiver catch more than 500 yards last year.
I feel like Carson Wentz is going to struggle.
Possibly, but I think they will do very well. Again, this is assuming Carson Wentz is healthy, since he usually tears something around week 4. So assuming he's healthy,
Fortunate for them.
Yeah, assuming he's healthy, I think they'll do well. So let's go NFC South.
This is the one I've been waiting for.
Oh boy, what are you gonna do?
Tom Brady is gonna be like amazing there.
Really?
Because if you look at their record from last year, they were 7-9, not terrible.
Yeah.
But that means that they didn't have a fantastic team. I personally don't think Tom Brady's that great. Sorry. I think he just had a really good team around him. Wow, shocker, I know. But since their team isn't very strong to begin with, I don't know that him coming in is going to magically fix that.
Okay.
However, most of their games that they won were away. They only won like 2 games at home.
Yep.
I think him being there is going to hype the crowd up, so that might bring in some extra wins here and there. So I'm going to give them this solid, 10 wins.
Okay.
They're not going to win the division. Saints are probably still going to be there.
Okay.
With Drew Brees.
Yes. Good job. You remember his name. I'm proud of you.
So I say Drew Brees is going to be like, yo, I know I'm old, but hey.
I know I'm old.
I'm still going to be pretty good.
Yes.
So I do think he's going to carry them to another winning season.
Okay.
Like last season. And then I think the Bucks are probably going to be right under them.
Okay.
Because I do think Tom Brady, although he's not going to be the magical part that brings the entire team together, I do think he might be able to bring in some cool crowd people and hype up the team a little bit.
Okay.
And then I don't really know much about the Panthers or the Falcons.
There's a reason for that.
So, I'm going to say 6 wins apiece. I'm just going to give them a good 6 wins.
Okay, that's fair.
I don't think they're going to be great.
Probably not. So I had Saints at 12-4. I also had the Bucks at 12-4, but Saints won the tiebreaker in that scenario because I predicted every game because I don't have a life. So Saints won that tiebreaker, so they win the division. Bucks would be the top wild card spot. Falcons were at 7-9, and Panthers were at 6-10. So you had it pretty accurate. I mean, again, this is compared to me, and who knows what'll happen.
Yeah, I just had the Falcons and the Panthers, even.
Yeah, Falcons got Todd Gurley, who if he plays, really good Todd Gurley, then that'll be fantastic, because then they'll have Matt Ryan, who's aging, but then he'll have Todd Gurley and Julio Jones, but if Todd Gurley isn't good, it still doesn't matter. They'll probably still suck. So my ceiling for them is, 8 or 9 wins. I still don't see a way they make the playoffs, but yeah. So, then our division...
So wait, you think that Brady's actually going to help them?
Yes, because he'll have the most weapons he's ever had in his career. They have a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. They have a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL. They have a top 10 tight end in the NFL. They also signed Gronk, who, if he's healthy, is a top 5 tight end in the NFL.
And if not, he can sing to them on the sideline.
True. And then they also drafted 4 of their top 5 picks drafted defense. And the one pick that wasn't was an offensive lineman to protect Tom Brady. So they know what they're doing. They went out and got 2 of the best rookie defensive players, in my opinion. I really like their picks. So I think they're going to do very well. I think you underestimate the fact that Tom Brady hasn't played with talent since Randy Moss in 2008. He hasn't had a good wide receiver in 12 years. And I do not count Julian Edelman, who all he can do is run slants. I'm sorry. He's not that talented. I was talking to a Boston Globe reporter the other day, and basically we agree that like the first half of his career, Brady carried Belichick, and the second half, Belichick carried Brady. So now we'll see if the Tampa Bay offense can carry Brady. Who knows? Maybe. We'll see. I honestly think it'll come down to their defense. If their defense is good, they will win a lot of games. If their defense if their defense chokes, then I don't think he'll be able to put up enough offense to compete with the rest of the offense in that division.
It's also the thing that the defense is coming in and playing with, like, Tom Brady.
Right. Yeah.
There's a lot of things, like, maybe people will be starstruck because he's kind of cool, apparently, and that type of stuff.
Apparently. I don't know.
Weird. I mean, they're all college kids. Can you imagine Patrick going to play for Tom Brady? I think he'd, like, cry the moment he saw him.
That's true, he would. I don't even think he'd be able to cry. He would just...
I mean, I feel like there's a lot of kids that have looked up to, like, Brady and, like, those types...
Well, because he's 42.
They're our era.
Yeah.
So, like...
Yeah, because the guy, their top safety that they drafted is, like, 21.
Yeah. So, like, they're our era. Brady's our era.
Right.
They're playing with him.
Yeah. It's
Maybe
true.
they'll screw it up.
We'll see. Okay, NFC North.
Our division.
Be careful here.
Hey, I'm wearing... you can't tell, but I'm wearing all green.
Oh, nice.
I go green watch. I go green
We love that.
Wow.
Also, we have to go faster. I have 13 minutes.
Fine. I don't know. It'll depend on if... Ow, I pinched a nerve in my shoulder. That hurts. Okay. It'll depend on if... Aaron...
You almost said
Rodgers-
Brett Favre.
No, I couldn't think of his name.
Oh,
I almost called him A.A. Ron.
close enough.
But it'll depend on if he stays healthy the whole year. I mean, we know he can play with one leg, like that type of stuff. But like, if he breaks his ribs again, or his arm, or collarbone, or whatever,
There it is.
I mean, he's hurt a lot of things. Like,
He's literally only hurt his calf and his collarbone. What?
The Bears are very good at hurting.
What'd
him.
you say? The Bears
What'd
and the
you say?
Vikings.
Okay, fine. I actually think the Vikings are gonna have over 10 wins this year. I think they have. Did they lose a lot of people?
Go ahead. Just talk. Just
Did
talk.
they lose people?
Just talk.
No, tell me.
No, just talk.
Okay, fine. I think they might have like over 10 wins, like 11, maybe. I don't know. I think they're gonna come in first. I think they have the chance of doing good this year. Carry on their like decent season-ish from last year. The Bears are gonna be average, like 7-9 or 8-8 again. They didn't pick anybody up, and Trubisky.
Yeah.
And he's gonna be hurt anyway. And then they got Foles, and he's just
True.
So they're gonna be average. I think Packers will probably have 10, like 12 wins again.
Okay.
It'll just kind of depend on Aaron and how he feels the entire year. I mean, they also
That's
have
fair.
that new dude, so I guess if Rodgers does get hurt, what's his nuts will be able to come in and
Jordan Love.
he'll be like, "Oh, look at me."
Yeet. Yes.
And then the Lions.
They're the Lions. Yeah, we don't really need to. Yeah, so I had Packers at 12-4. I have Vikings at 8-8. So what you don't know is Stephon Diggs, who is their best receiver. They traded him to Buffalo. So he is no longer there. Yes, Buffalo.
To Buffalo?
Yeah.
That poor dude.
He got exiled to Buffalo. So
Stadiums.
they lost their top receiver, and if you just look at the numbers, Adam Thielen is their number 2 receiver. He's also very talented, but if you look at the games where Stephon Diggs was hurt, he can't be a number 1 wide receiver. He's not good enough, really. So their star running back, Dalvin Cook, is also holding out for a new contract. And then you have Kirk Cousins, who hasn't won a game against a team with a winning record since, like, 2016.
That's basically the Bears.
Right. So then you also have the fact that last year they were the healthiest team in the NFL. They had 1 game where they missed a starter. They were the healthiest team in the NFL, and they still could not do anything. So they start getting injured, and they're screwed. They also lost their number 1 corner. So.
You know.
So I had the Vikings at 8.
Titled Andersen, Pickard, and Paige Epner trying to figure out teams and not knowing anything.
Basically. So yeah, I had Vikings at 8 and 8, Bears at 5 and 11, and Lions at 4 and 12.
We think they're gonna do bad?
Yes.
Oh no.
I think they're gonna go back and forth between Trubisky and Foles so many times that team forgets how to play football.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, that could be an issue.
Okay, so speed round, 9 minutes. AFC. AFC North, go.
AFC North. Ravens, Browns, Steelers, Bengals.
Same thing I have.
Yeah, I think the Browns are going to come out and be like, "Hey, we here."
And then they go and choke in the playoffs.
Yeah. I don't know if they're going to make playoffs. That's a little much for them. They were 6-10 last year, so.
I have Browns and Steelers both at 11 and 5, Ravens at 13 and 3, and Bengals at 6 and 10.
You really have the Bengals winning 6 games?
Yeah.
They won 2 last year. They were so
Right,
bad.
and they just got the best quarterback in the country out of college, who probably is already a top 15 quarterback.
Fair. Do they have anybody to back him up, though?
No.
Then I don't really get it. Like, why do people, like, go for, like, oh, number 1 quarterback, but they don't have anything to, like, help him?
Oh, you mean like offense? Oh, I thought you meant like a backup quarterback.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. They have AJ Green, who pretty much didn't play last year just because
I know that name.
they were tanking. Yeah, he's really good. And then they have a couple good running backs. So yeah, he'll be fine. He'll have plenty of offensive weapons. Their defense isn't very good, but it's okay. Okay. AFC South.
The South? You're in a different order than I have. Okay.
Sorry.
South. Titans,
Okay.
Colts, Texans, Jaguars.
I had Colts, Titans, Texans, Jaguars. I had Colts, Titans, and Texans all ending at 9 and 7, which got really messy because then I had to go back and do the math of who won.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, luckily head-to-head was able to decide it, because otherwise I would have had to do actual math, which would be scary. Yeah, okay.
That would not have gone well. You would have never found the right answer.
Nope, I would have just guessed. AFC East.
Okay.
This is where it gets fun.
Yeah. Bills.
Yes. Good job.
Bills. Jets. Patriots. Dolphins.
Okay. I have Bills, Dolphins, Jets, Patriots. I have Dolphins and Jets both at 5 and 11.
Okay.
And then I have Patriots at 2 and 14.
See, I don't know if they're gonna do that bad.
I am 98% confident that they will tank for Trevor Lawrence, who's the best quarterback in the next draft class.
Makes sense.
Because if you think about it, they tank for Trevor Lawrence, then they have 1 year off between Brady and possibly another generational quarterback.
You know.
Rest in peace to the NFL. Yeah. So AFC West.
I think the Chiefs are gonna ride it and be like, "Hey, we did good. Let's keep going good."
Yep.
Because Patrick Mahomes is still like great.
He's still only like 25 years old.
Yeah, he's so young, and he's got some good people to like throw to and hang out with and play with. You know, that type of stuff.
You know, the usual.
The usual. Um, are the Raiders moving this year?
They already moved
When did they move?
last year.
Oh.
Las Vegas.
Well, I was gonna say maybe a new town, like more hype, but I guess not.
No.
I'm gonna say Chiefs, Broncos, Chargers, Raiders.
I have Chiefs, Raiders, Chargers, Broncos.
Okay.
I don't see the Drew Lock hype.
I don't know who that is.
he's their rookie. Well, not rookie. Second year quarterback.
Broncos?
Yeah, Broncos. They drafted a lot of rookie wide receivers that he's going to be throwing to. The team is just really young. I don't see them doing very well next year. I think they're going to lose a lot of close games. I think the Raiders will do a lot better. They finally got Derek Carr, a good wide receiver. And then Chargers, they are going to start with Tyrod Taylor and suck. And then their rookie Justin Herbert will probably come in midway through the season and do really well, but it'll be too late by then. So if you had to guess right now, give me your winner of the NFC, winner of the AFC, and Super Bowl winner.
AFC, Chiefs.
Okay.
I still think they're going to be riding it. NFC, who did I say? I don't remember who I said for first for any of these.
You said Vikings. Hold up. You said Vikings, Saints, Cowboys, Seahawks.
I'm going to say Chiefs and Saints.
And then who wins?
Saints.
That's exactly what I had.
Really?
Yep. That is
Oh,
exactly
no.
what I had. I
I
had
read your mind.
so in the NFC my playoff matchups were Cowboys, Saints, 49ers, Packers, Bucks, Seahawks. I had Saints, Seahawks, Packers winning. Then it was Seahawks, Eagles, Packers, Saints. I had Eagles and Saints winning. I had Saints beating the Eagles in the championship game. AFC, I had Chiefs, Titans, Browns, Bills, Steelers, Colts. I had Chiefs, Bills, Steelers winning. Then I had Steelers beating the Ravens, Bills losing to the Chiefs. Then I had Steelers losing to the Chiefs in the AFC Championship, and then Chiefs losing to the Saints. Drew Brees finally gets a ring. That's kind of
People are
freaky.
gonna be like, you were lying. You actually read it. No, I didn't.
Yeah, guys, let me talk to you real quick. She didn't read it. I promise you. She doesn't like reading. She doesn't read.
Right? I don't like reading.
She doesn't listen to my podcast. She doesn't read.
I read some of your articles, but I figured that one would be really long, and I was not about that life.
It really wasn't that long. It was like a 4-minute read. It literally said, when you click on the article, it'll tell you how long the read is.
Is it?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, most websites have that. Well,
Interesting.
that was fun. That's kind of freaky
did
how
good.
similar we were.
I mean,
You have more.
I listen to you when you talk.
You have more
right?
knowledge than we thought.
I listen to you when you talk. And I did watch the NFL draft. I just completely forgot everything because I was playing Fortnite.
That's fair. What?
What, should I leave?
What? No. All of a sudden you just stopped.
I think I did Brucey proud.
You did do Brucey proud. And unfortunately, he was not able to be here, caught up at work. Big 214 tech guy.
I think he should watch this, though, and see how good I am.
Oh, I'm sure he will. I'll make
And
sure
look at how perfect I embody his Bruciness.
the Bruce impression. Yes. Well, thank you for saving me. Thank you to Andersen for saving me.
Thank you for picking up your phone when I called you earlier.
True. Well, I had just opened your message when you called me, so.
Oh.
And the idea had been in my head, but I was like, I kind of wanted to wait to see if I knew you would say it anyway, so it's like,
Well, I just like helping you.
Yeah.
It's fun.
It was good. It was a lot of fun. So thank you for doing that. Say goodbye to YouTube and Twitch chat.
Hi, YouTube and Twitch.